Her engagement was called off, and she ended up unexpectedly marrying a poor man, not knowing he was actually a mysterious millionaire. The grand ballroom of the Ritz Hotel glowed under the sparkling light of chandeliers. The air was fragrant, with roses, champagne, and the buzz of high society chatter. Everything was just as Sarah had imagined for her engagement party. She was near the center of the room, holding a glass of bubbly, her heart racing with excitement. Tonight, in front of everyone, she and Tom would finally announce their engagement. Her fiancé was running behind. However, this wasn't out of the ordinary. Tom was a busy guy, making his mark in the corporate world, driven and sharp, but he always made time for her, always. She adjusted the lace on her soft blue dress and glanced at her folks, who were chatting with prominent guests. They had pushed for the engagement, seeing Tom as the perfect match for their family's legacy. Sarah sighed and took another sip of champagne. Where is he? Just then, the ballroom doors swung open, all heads turned, and Tom walked in, not alone but hand in hand with another woman. Sarah's heart dropped. The room erupted in whispers. A waiter stood frozen, spilling champagne onto the tablecloth. Cameras flashed as the scandal unfolded. Sarah couldn't move. The woman was Lisa Turner, the daughter of one of Tom's key business partners, stunning in a sleek red dress that hugged her figure. Her lips curled in a smirk. And Tom, he looked completely unbothered. He was still holding her hand. Sarah forced herself to speak, her voice barely audible above the tension filling the room. Tom. He stopped a few steps away, looked her directly in the eye, and with chilling indifference said, Sarah, I can't marry you. It hit like a slap. Silence fell over the room. Sarah tried to catch her breath. What are you saying? Tom exhaled, as if this was a mere inconvenience. Let's be honest, Sarah. You have nothing to offer me. Her stomach twisted. I don't understand. You proposed to me. Tom's lips curled in a taunting smile. Did I, though? Or was it just something our families arranged? Her vision blurred. I needed the leverage of your family's name, he continued. But now I have better options. Lisa chuckled and squeezed Tom's arm. He means me. Sarah felt sick. Is this some kind of joke? Her voice cracked. Tom's eyes turned cold. I never loved you, Sarah, he said, voice cutting. You were nothing but a step up, and I don't need you anymore. A shock ran through the room. Someone dropped a glass. Sarah's hands shook as she searched for any sign that this wasn't real, happening. But Tom just smirked. Lisa tilted her head, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. You're a sweet girl, Sarah, but let's face it. You don't belong in Tom's world. You never did. Sarah felt everyone's eyes on her, waiting to see her crumble. She could hear the whispers. What a poor girl. So embarrassing. Did she really think he loved her? Her mom's voice cut through the oppressive silence. Sarah. She turned slowly, hoping her mom would defend her this time, but her mom's face wasn't concerned. It was disgusted. You've embarrassed us, her mom said, her voice sharp. Sarah felt the final blow. I didn't. If you can't secure a husband with wealth and power, her mom continued coldly, then you're no daughter of mine. Her mom turned away, leaving Sarah alone in a crowded room. Her world had just shattered. The streets of New York were harsh. At night, especially when you were alone in an evening dress that no longer felt like yours. Sarah's heels clicked sharply against the pavement. Her feet hurt, her shoes digging into her skin. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Not when every time she closed her eyes, she heard Tom's cold voice. I never loved you. Her mom's voice wasn't far behind, tearing through her already broken heart. You're no daughter of mine. A shaky breath escaped, her lips as she stumbled forward, the night air burning her lungs. The diamond ring that once proudly sat on her finger was gone, left behind on the ballroom floor. She had nothing now, no fiancé, no family, no future. Sarah didn't know how. Far she walked until she saw the warm, inviting glow of a small, dimly lit bar. It wasn't a place she'd normally choose, too old, too quiet, too unfamiliar. But she didn't care. She just needed a drink. The bartender barely acknowledged her as she slid onto a worn-out stool, her dress out of place against the bar's peeling wood and flickering neon lights. "Whiskey," she muttered. "Neat." The bartender didn't question it, just poured her a glass and moved on. Sarah downed the first sip, welcomed the burn that seared down her throat. Good, she wanted it to hurt. "You don't strike me as the whiskey type," a voice remarked, smooth and deep, with curiosity. Sarah turned to see a man sitting a couple of stools away. He wasn't like the men she was used to. No sharp suits or expensive watches. He wore a simple dark jacket over a gray t-shirt. His hair was tousled as if he didn't care to style it perfectly. But his eyes were striking, deep and unreadable, holding secrets she'd never understand. "Maybe I wasn't before," Sarah replied, taking another sip. "But people change." The man studied her. "Rough night?" She let out a rough laugh. "You could say that." The whiskey loosened the pain in her chest, and she found herself talking to the stranger. Sarah told him about the failed engagement, the betrayal, and the humiliation. She didn't know why. Maybe it was because he was a stranger and couldn't judge her like the rest of the world. He listened, never interrupting, watching her with those knowing eyes. And when she finished speaking, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the bar. "If you need a husband, I'm available," he said casually. Sarah blinked, then laughed with genuine amusement. "You want to marry me?" she teased, her eyes glinting with drunken amusement. The man smiled, a lazy curve of his lips. "Why not? You need a husband. I have nothing better to do." It was crazy, completely insane. But something in Sarah's chest stirred. Maybe it was the alcohol, maybe the heartbreak, or maybe because for the first time tonight, she felt she was in control of her own fate. She lifted her glass in a mock toast and grinned. "All right, stranger, let's get married." Sarah woke, up with a pounding headache and a sinking sense of wrongness. The sheets weren't the silk ones from her apartment. The air smelled like coffee and something unfamiliar. Then she saw it, a cheap silver ring on her left hand. Her stomach dropped. She turned her head slowly, afraid of what she'd see. There he was, the stranger from the bar, Matt, lying next to her, shirtless, with one arm lazily across his chest. Sarah gasped. What had she done? Sarah sat at the edge of the battered couch, staring at the peeling paint on the walls and the dim lighting casting shadows over the small apartment. This was her new home. She still couldn't comprehend how she had gone from luxury to this, from Emily Bennett, the glamorous fiancée of a wealthy businessman, to Emily what's her name now. She glanced at the cheap silver ring on her finger, half expecting it to vanish along with the chaos she found herself in. But it didn't. There was movement from the small kitchen area. She turned her head and saw Matt, her husband. Matt, the stranger she had drunkenly agreed to marry. He stood by the stove, cooking something in a pan. The scent of buttery eggs and toast filled the room, making her stomach rumble. Matt glanced over his shoulder, catching her staring. "Morning, wife," he smirked. Sarah groaned, covering her face with her hands. "I really was hoping this was a bad dream," she mumbled. Matt chuckled. "Nope, it's real. You married a stranger. Well done." Sarah peeked through her fingers. "And you're okay with this?" He shrugged, placing 2 plates of eggs and toast on the small dining table. "I'm a man of my word. You needed a husband. I stepped up." Sarah exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "This is nuts." Matt sat across from her, watching her carefully. Eat first, then we'll discuss your regrets. She shot him a glare, but picked up her fork anyway. Reality hit her hard over the next few days. She had nothing. No access to her family's wealth, no designer outfits, no staff. She had to wash dishes and do her own laundry. Worst of all, she had to budget. She had never budgeted in her life. The first grocery trip with Matt, she reached for an overpriced bottle of water, only for him to roll his eyes and put it back. "You're not a Bennett, princess," he said, tossing a cheaper bottle into the cart. "Welcome to the real world." Sarah huffed, but said nothing. It was humiliating and frustrating, but oddly freeing. For the first time, there were no pretenses, no pressure to be a perfect socialite, no judging eyes watching her. And there was Matt. He wasn't like other men who showed off their wealth and valued worth with money. Matt was different. Despite his teasing, he never let her struggle. When she burned dinner, he just laughed and ordered takeout. When she stumbled over a floorboard, he was there to catch her. And on a rainy night, when the power went out, and she felt lost, Matt just sat beside her, offered a blanket, and remained in silence. He didn't pity her. He simply understood. Slowly, Sarah realized she wasn't as lost as she thought. Sarah had always thought she could read people. Growing up in high society, she learned to recognize the subtle tells. The way someone carried themselves, the slight hesitation when they lied, the look of greed in their eyes. But Matt was a mystery. She thought he was just a regular guy, living paycheck to paycheck, indifferent to luxury or status. But small things didn't add. It began with the wine. One night, Matt came home with a bottle of red, nothing fancy. Sarah, raised among wine debates, smirked. "Beer guy, right?" she teased. Matt chuckled, pouring a glass, then swirled the wine, examined it, inhaled its aroma, and sipped. Like a pro. Sarah frowned. "What was that?" Matt raised a brow. "What was what?" She pointed to his glass. "Wine tasting skills." Matt smirked. "Maybe I just like wine." Sarah narrowed her eyes. Typical guys don't do that. Then there was the car incident. Passing a luxury car dealership, she jokingly asked, "If you could choose any car, what would it be?" Without hesitating, Matt answered, "Aston Martin DBS Superleggera, V12 engine, 715 horsepower, 211 miles per hour. Sarah stared. Most guys she knew wouldn't remember that car, let alone its specs. Matt noticed and shrugged. "I like cars." Sarah brushed it off, until she found the money. While Matt was in the shower, Sarah was looking for a pen in their small dining drawer and found a stack of crisp $100 bills. Her heart skipped a beat. Weren't they broke? Budgeting groceries, living in a dingy apartment, having takeout on rare occasions. Where did this come from? She reached for the stack, running her fingers over the smooth paper. It was more than just a few bills, $10,000 at least. Before she could process it, Matt's voice came from behind. "Looking for something." Sarah jumped, almost dropping the money. Matt was in the doorway, a towel around his neck, arms crossed. She turned to him, confused. "Where did this come from?" Matt casually took the stack, placed it back in the drawer, and closed it. Silence hung between them. "Matt?" she questioned. He smirked. "Does it matter?" Sarah blinked. "Of course it matters. We live like we can barely make rent but have cash in a drawer." Matt shrugged. "I don't like wasting money." "That's not an answer." He chuckled, stepping closer. "Didn't you choose to marry me for me?" Sarah's breath hitched. That's what she'd said. That money didn't matter, that she didn't care about wealth. But knowing there was something he wasn't telling her, she felt uneasy. Matt lifted her chin, his voice soft. "Trust me, Sarah," he said. "Everything will make sense soon." But would it? A thought crept in. Was Matt involved in something illegal? The floor creaked as she shifted her weight. Matt's head snapped up, and they stood in silence before Matt closed the drawer, his fingers tight, jaw clenched. Sarah found her voice. "That money?" Matt took a deep breath. "It's not what you think, Sarah." Her chest tightened. "Then explain it." Matt hesitated a second, just enough. "Are you—" Sarah swallowed. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" Matt's gaze darkened. "No." "Then why are you hiding cash?" she demanded, voice rising. "We live like we're struggling, but you have thousands. Sitting in a drawer. What's going on?" Matt sighed, frustrated. "Trust me." "Trust you?" she repeated. "How can I trust you when you keep secrets?" Matt's eyes flashed. "I could ask the same. You married me thinking I was just some poor guy, and that was okay. But now, you assume the worst when you see money?" Sarah was silent, guilt washing over her. Matt shook his head, voice lower. "I thought you loved me for me, not my wallet." Sarah's throat tightened. "I do," she whispered. Matt sighed, stepping away. "Then act like it," he muttered, leaving the kitchen, and Sarah even more bewildered. The next day, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something important. Matt had secrets, and she needed to know. While sorting through old books, she found a newspaper clipping between the pages. Her heart raced. It was an old business piece dated 3 years ago, featuring a photo of Matt, or someone who looked just like him. But the name under the photo wasn't Matt. It was Jake Alexander Mason. Her fingers trembled as she read, "Billionaire heir disappears. The mystery of Jake Mason." Sarah's blood ran cold. Who had she married? The farmer's market bustled with colors and chatter, fresh bread and coffee scenting the air as Sarah and Matt strolled through the crowd. It was their Saturday tradition, picking up produce and playfully arguing over whether they needed more sourdough. Sarah loved these mornings, peaceful and real. She reached for strawberries when a familiar mocking voice cut through. Well, look who's here." Sarah froze, slowly turning to see Tom, dressed in an expensive suit alongside Lisa. Her stomach twisted as Matt placed a hand on her back. "Friends?" he asked with a touch of edge in his voice. Sarah exhaled. "Sort of." Tom smirked. "Almost didn't recognize you without the designer dress." Lisa joined in, eyeing Matt derisively. "And this must be your husband." Matt was silent, but Sarah felt him tense. Tom crossed his arms. "Kind of sad, really. You used to be someone, but now you're with this guy." Sarah's blood boiled. After everything, Tom had the nerve to mock Matt. She lifted her chin. "At least he loves me," she said, voice steady. Tom's smirk faltered, but he laughed coldly. "Love doesn't—" "Pay bills, Sarah," Lisa sneered at Matt. "What does he have besides that old jacket?" Sarah's hands clenched, but before she could reply, Matt did. "I have enough," he said smoothly, eyes dark, calculating, amused by something others didn't see. Then he smiled a knowing smile, like holding a secret that could shake everything. Tom frowned, sensing something was off. Lisa scoffed, "You're delusional." But Matt's smile never wavered, and beside him, Sarah felt the game was about to turn in a way Tom and Lisa wouldn't expect. The apartment was silent except for the clock ticking. Sarah sat on the couch, heart pounding as she held the letter she'd found. The name on it, Jake Alexander Mason, not Matt Carter, burned into her mind. She knew that name. Everyone in the business world did. The Mason empire was powerful, with stakes in real estate, tech, luxury brands. But 3 years ago, after a scandal, Jake Mason had vanished. Now he was in their small apartment, pretending to be ordinary. Sarah's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a secret, it was a deception. Matt walked in, tossing keys onto the table. He looked at her and smiled, unaware of her turmoil. "Home. Early," he said, freeing himself from his jacket. "Maybe pasta for dinner, or you want something else?" Sarah didn't move, gripping the letter. Finally, she spoke. Jake Alexander Mason. Matt froze, slowly meeting her gaze, not with shock but quiet understanding. Sarah swallowed hard. That's your real name, isn't it? Matt sighed and raked a hand through his hair. Where'd you find that? He asked, calm. Not the point. Sarah snapped, standing, emotions spilling. You lied. You let me think you were some regular guy, but you're a billionaire. Matt finished, a small, playful smirk on his lips. Sarah's heart twisted. This isn't funny, she whispered, voice breaking. Why? Why hide? Matt sighed and leaned against the counter, arms folded. I didn't want you to love me for money. He said it simply. Sarah froze. His eyes were steady and honest. You think I haven't seen it? Matt continued. People pretending to care. Women seeing me as a prize. I needed to know real love. Sarah's breath hitched, realizing this truth. She'd grown up where money was everything, almost marrying Tom, who saw her as a bargaining chip. Yet here was Matt, who walked away from wealth for something real, and had chosen her. A tear slipped out. Matt moved closer, voice soft. I never meant to hurt you, Sarah. But now that you know the truth, I have to ask. He gently lifted her chin with his hand. Do you still love me? The rooftop was lit with fairy lights, soft jazz humming in the background. A gentle breeze mixed the scent of fresh roses with candlelight glowing on the elegantly set table. Sarah stared, breath taken by the perfection. She turned to Matt, who stood beside her, hands in his pockets, watching her with quiet amusement. You did all this? She whispered. Matt smirked. With help. Sarah laughed, shaking her head. Regular guys don't have access to rooftop venues and chefs. Matt chuckled. Caught me. He reached for her hand, led her to the table and seated her before sitting opposite. Dinner was flawless. Gourmet bites, rich wine, carefully poured by Matt. But despite the beauty, Sarah battled emotions. Part of her struggled to combine the man she loved with the billionaire he was. You're quiet, Matt observed. Sarah sighed, setting down her fork. Still processing. Matt nodded. Because of the money? Sarah hesitated, nodding. It's not wealth, Matt. It's your world, the one you left. It's different. What if I don't fit in? Matt leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. You think I care? About to respond, Sarah gaped as Matt suddenly dropped to one knee. Her heart skipped. Matt pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a stunning diamond sparkling under the light. Her heart raced. Sarah, he spoke softly, emotions evident. I don't want to just be the man you married in a drunken moment. I want to be one you choose not by chance, but desire. Tears welled. Matt took her hand, gently stroking her skin with his thumb. Forget the money, he said. Forget the name. I'm just Matt. Her voice broke. Yes. Matt's face glowed as he slid the ring onto her finger and embraced her. Just like that, she wasn't lost. She'd found home. The grand ballroom of the Mason. Foundation glowed with golden light, soft music melding with the conversation. Guests roamed, toasting champagne in celebration. But this wasn't just any event. It was Sarah and Matt's dream realized. Their foundation, helping women rebuild after loss or mistreatment, thrived. Sarah understood what it meant to lose everything. Now she offered hope to others once in her place. Matt stood by her, hand resting on her back as they greeted guests. She never imagined this life, not just wealthy but meaningful. As they mingled, a familiar voice made Sarah stop. Quite the surprise. Alex and Lisa stood there, but they were different. Gone was Alex's arrogance, confidence. His tailored suit was slightly worn, his expected smirk gone. Lisa, once draped in luxury, seemed uneasy, like her world was unstable. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Alex, he forced a smile, desperation in his eyes. Moved up, I see. Lisa scoffed. Enjoy it while it lasts. Sarah didn't react, just tilted her head. Heard about Lisa's dad's company. Too bad. Matt, silent until now, spoke calmly. Business is iffy. One wrong move ruins it all. Lisa's jaw tightened. Alex's darkened. They once belittled Sarah. Now they were struggling. Sarah squeezed Matt's hand, smiling. Thank you, Alex, she said, confidence strong, for leaving me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have found my best choice, him. She glanced at Matt, heart full. Alex was silent. Jessica pulled him into the crowd. Sarah chuckled softly. Poetic justice, huh? Matt smirked. More like karma. The sun cast a golden glow on the private beach, waves gently lapping. Sarah relaxed under a sun umbrella, watching two little figures, a boy and girl, run toward the water, laughing, chased by Matt. Their twins, Ben and Lily. Her heart filled. Having lost everything once, she now had family, purpose, a love that defied odds. Matt jogged back, kissed her forehead softly. Happy, he murmured. Sarah smiled, squeezing his hand. More than ever imagined possible. She looked at her, family, at their life built from heartbreak, and whispered, You're my best decision ever. Sarah's journey showed the greatest heartbreaks often lead to unexpected blessings. She lost wealth, status, family, but found true love, found herself, and built a meaningful life. Matt never needed his fortune to win her heart. He just needed to be himself. Together, they turned pain into purpose, creating a legacy of kindness. In the end, that was the greatest wealth.